I saw this on the news today with her just 27-minute speech. I was looking at that picture and I was looking at her hands and her body. Those hands do not belong to that body. Why do they have to manipulate things? So that probably could have been a real picture of her, but now it's AI'd with the fake hands. Why do they do it? It would have been okay. What is that? To show that she's got her hands on the situation? She's in control. Look at the size of the hands compared to her body. They have her arms are down, but the hands are up. And I saw another one, but I don't seem to be able to find that one now. But look at that. How ridiculous is that? And there she is, laughing. And when I look at that video, are those people standing in front of her? Is she really there? Is that just her slotted in from somewhere else? The people behind are blurry. The people in front look quite big compared to her. They're right in... Yes, anyway, the whole thing is just bananas. It always is. It always looks like that. Why do they have to do it? Why do they have to manipulate the pictures? What for? They don't want us seeing real. There's the second picture. I reckon her arms are down and they superimposed those hands on again. Her face and neck is totally... They just see the colour of her hands are different. That's another CGI'd photograph of her. Why can't they leave things alone? What is their problem? Anyway, I just see these things. Trump or Kamala? Yeah, it's a bit of a joke really, isn't it? Yes, they're selected, not elected. I bet you in America itself you won't particularly find news like this. I actually quite like the Australian news, Sky News. They always pull things to pieces and probably say a lot of what you think, but they're part of the game, aren't they? And we all know that the presidents, prime ministers get selected, not elected, so it's all a bit crazy, isn't it? But I do like how they moan and groan about things or what they see, but it's a shame the Americans won't really ever see it because it's over there in Australia, which is usually a very controlled country, but they're making news like this, so that's crazy in itself. I don't quite understand how they can get away saying all that they say all the time, but that's the way it is. Anyway, we're going to put this little video on. Look at what they're saying. They don't trust Kamala. No, I don't think anybody does. And she sort of is a... Well, you know what I said when I said it. And she never says anything. Anyway, thanks for watching.
Well, joining us now is former White House Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, so good to have you here tonight. What did you make of that interview, first of all?
James, my favorite question was what are you going to do on the first day? And the answer was essentially, well, what I'm going to do on the first day is what I'm going to do on the first day. And by that, I mean what I said I was going to do on the first day and all the things I've said I'm going to do. And by that, I mean the things that I said I'm going to do. A lot of hope, a lot of change. You know, the things I've talked about. That's exactly what I'm going to do on the first day. It was one of the most vapid sort of discussions I've seen in a long time in politics. I think the only person who did worse tonight than Kamala Harris was Tim Walz, who tried to defend lying about his military record. So it was not a good night. My guess is it will be well received by the left-leaning press in this country because at least it was an interview. But I think if you were an undecided voter trying to figure out what Kamala Harris stands for on anything, you left tonight still wanting.
Yeah, and Mick, I mean, there were some pretty poor answers to some pretty basic questions like this one.
Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border. And because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill.
Mick, two things about this. Number one, I mean, she was border czar during this historic influx of illegal migration. And number two, what about this sort of style that she has where every time she gets sort of challenged or out of her depth, she goes into this kind of school teacher mode, like she's explaining things to a bunch of 5-year-olds?
It works, James, on the left-leaning press. I mean, keep in mind that Democrats really do see organizations like CNN, like MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, Washington Post, New York Times, but I could go on, as organizations attached to the Democrat Party. So the answer that she gave is satisfactory to folks on the left. It just doesn't necessarily appeal to folks who are down the middle or folks who are undecided voters. On the immigration issue, what I wish Dana Bash, the interviewer from CNN, had asked is the follow-up question, which is, okay, so you now support a bill that supports building a wall, even though during the debate you said that building a wall was un-American. When you say you've kept your values but changed your position, how are those two things consistent? Is building a wall still un-American? Again, you could ask this of Kamala Harris on a bunch of different issues because she has switched on a bunch of them. I'm not sure how the answer, well, I'm keeping to my values, really explains why you're completely flipping on the issues. I wish we had seen that follow-up on the border wall for sure.
Well, I mean, we had another sort of similar thing happen on the issue of fracking. Have a look at this.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, in a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed.
Well, Mick, her values have not changed. I mean, I'm starting to ask the question here, Mick, was this interview actually a mistake?
Yeah, it's sort of like that. I was against fracking before I was before fracking, or for fracking before I was against fracking.
Yeah.
No, it's not a mistake because, again, it was on at 9 o'clock on Thursday. For those of you who aren't familiar with our calendar, it is a long weekend here. It's a bank holiday weekend. It's the Labor Day weekend on holiday on Monday. So this is about as dead an airtime as you can get media-wise. But they had to do it. My guess is you will not see Tim Walz and Kamala Harris do a lot more interviews before this election. Why? They're doing fine without doing these types of things, as they learned with their first policy proposal, James, when they came out to talk about price fixing, price gouging, that turned out to be a complete disaster from a campaign perspective. This is probably going to be perceived as a campaign disaster as well, and you won't see it anymore. You used a great line on the introduction. I've not heard it yet. I'm going to steal it, which is they're trying to ride the vibe. They're trying to essentially sort of talk about hope and change and feelings and all these types of sort of subjective things and ride that all the way into the White House. That's what they're going to try and do. They're not going to try and win this race on policy. I think you put her policies up against Donald Trump would win this race going away with the American public, but they're banking on this race not being about policy. They're hoping it will be about feelings.